We want to set the stage for what we're seeing happening in the space. And we want to set the stage so that you can get the most out of the next couple of days. So we're going to tell a story. That's what you all came for, story time. We're going to tell the story of monetizing the megawatt. And the good thing about this story is that it requires very few assumptions. In fact, we think it only really requires one assumption, which is that energy is human flourishing, with an emphasis on the is. The reason we can make this assumption, do you guys agree with that assumption, please? Because we are in serious trouble on the rest of these slides if you don't agree with that assumption. Energy is human flourishing. It is. And you don't just have historical precedent, you have empirical data that shows this. Who's seen this chart behind me before? While trying to convince your family that you can go set up another megawatt of mining. Well, let's make it concrete. Let's position it at a certain point in time in history, when this was really exploding and emerging and becoming the state of the art. And what you see behind me is an image of the Industrial Revolution, of course, started in Great Britain. And it occurred for a number of reasons. It occurred because there were technical innovations, power looms. It occurred because of the steam engine. It occurred because we all of a sudden had a way to monetize minerals. If Steve Barber is here, ask him about his great affection for coal. And that's all good and well. But that wasn't really the zenith of the Industrial Revolution. Like many Americans, there are a lot of Americans here, not all Americans, we appreciate the British for giving us the birth of the Industrial Revolution, but we kind of took it and turned it all the way up to 11. And I don't think there's a better example of that than through Henry Ford, if anybody's heard of him. Henry Ford's Crystal Palace. Who has heard of Henry Ford's Crystal Palace? Bummer. I thought there were going to be fewer people. I thought we were really going to... What is Henry Ford's Crystal Palace? It's where the moving assembly line was pioneered. It's a 130-acre campus that was purchased in Highland Park, Michigan. That was the central point, the focal point of his moving assembly line, which was the zenith of industrial production at the age. It was called the Crystal Palace because, unlike those old British warehouses that we don't like anyway, this one had windows, long rows of glass windows that let the light in. And why was it able to function? It was able to function because Henry Ford was able to steward resources at a scale, at a level, at this central location in a way that had never been done before historically. He built a site to produce a Model T. He needed energy, so he built power plants. He needed minerals, so he bought coal mines. He needed trees, so he bought hundreds of thousands of acres of woods. He needed people, so he standardized the $5 a day wage, and he got people working. And if you go into the head, the mind of Henry Ford, and you try to figure out what is motivating this guy, he'll tell us. What was he going for? And you're not listening to me, you're reading that right now. He was going for a continuous, nonstop process from raw material to finished product with no pause, even for warehousing or storage. Not an uncommon thing from what we hear today in a lot of production. Did he achieve his aim? No, he didn't. And how could he? He had the aim, but he couldn't achieve it with the technology of the time. He had limitations. He was location dependent. He had to be at a specific location. Previously, they used to put factories on rivers. Why? Because I need the flow of water. I need power. All right, coal lets me build my steam engine and go power everything. Okay, I can move away from the river. Crap, I still need to be by a road. Oh, I still need to ship things, so I have to get it back on the river. He was location dependent. He had to be in Highland Park to really make this work. He had near continuous production. People like to sleep. Supply chains break. It's very hard to get coal from the Powder River Basin or wherever it might need to come from to Michigan to run things continuously, especially if you don't want to warehouse it. You have to use it as instantaneously as possible. And the last piece is that cars were not a commodity yet. Cars were still a product. They were a new product. And he had to sell you that product. So he didn't realize the revenue until he sold you a car. Now, his aim, although he may not have achieved it, was still a really important aim. And it's still a worthy aim. And we think it is still very much achievable, if not actually achieved, with the advent of the modern crystal palace, the silicon chip. Because we don't live in the industrial age, we live in an information age. And the strange thing about these crystal palaces, these productive little units, they don't all have to live in Highland Park, Michigan. Unfortunately, too many of them come from overseas. I'd like to see more crystal palaces built in the US. But if you get enough of them together, you can make a machine. You can make a GPU. You can make a Bitcoin miner. And then you get those Bitcoin miners together and you put them in a building and you attach them to some source of electricity, some source of energy you go by. And you have this new, strange thing, this 21st century load, a very different kind of crystal palace than what Henry Ford was doing, but a kind of crystal palace that actually fulfills Henry Ford's goal. And this is the point where you begin raging because, yes, AI is a different kind of energy buyer. I get it. It's different. The supply chain is different. The technique. I get it. Please bear with me for a brief moment, okay? We got a good metaphor going here. Characteristically, the 21st century load is different, and we're really thinking predominantly about Bitcoin here, because this is a situation where at scale we have precedent over a lot of the large AI buildouts. And we have kind of a dumber product, let's be honest. Hash rate is kind of a dumber product compared to having to do GPU compute. It's a different game we're playing. But the characteristics are different in very core ways, and it separates it from the prior age. We're location invariant. We don't really care where you put us, as long as you have Starlink, a way to connect to the internet. We're curtailable. We can start the factory, stop it, and there's nothing lost. There's no warehousing. We don't have all the hashes building up in the back room causing issues. And on the other side of the equation, when the hashes are produced, we're making a commodity. We're not making a product. We don't have to produce the hashes and then go find somebody to contractually sell them to. We just point our hash rate to the team at Brains, to the team at Foundry, and they graciously accept it and they pay us for it. It's a commodity. And this is really the realization of Henry Ford's goal of continuous ongoing production. And it's unbelievable. It's at this point that my head is exploding because we have unlocked fundamentally, not just continuous production, but human flourishing. Because if you agree that human flourishing is the story of energy, then a tool like this is necessarily human flourishing. And this is the point where your wife says, "Sweetie, that's very nice, but what time are you dropping the kids off tomorrow?" It's a truth. I believe it's a truth. I hope you believe it's a truth. Just the importance of these types of 21st century loads. But there's an issue with the truth, and I don't think anybody says it better than Michael Lewis. The truth is like poetry. And most people don't like poetry. So we can't give them the spreadsheets. We can't give them the data. We can't necessarily give them the high-level facts and bullet points. We have to give them the stories. Because the stories, your stories, are what is going to resonate with them. And it's really going to help them segue into understanding, what the heck are we doing playing with our Bitcoins? So instead of giving them the facts, we give them the stories. And contained in those stories is the truth of 21st century loads. Contained in those stories, you have Steve Barber, who is monetizing minerals all over the world. He is allowing for additional oil and gas exploration and greater capital efficiency. You put the story of the Exergy team, and before I jump too far, is Steve in the room yet so that you can grab him by the ears, or Brett Rowan if he's here? If you could throw your hand up, because I would love for people to know who to ask about these sorts of things. If you're the team from Exergy, if you can put a hand up. Building control systems, turning what were previously sunk costs to commercial operators into monetized heating systems that radically changes the game of both home heating, control systems, and the sort of HVAC side of things, and the way that these large commercial entities think about heating their spaces. That's a very compelling story, and contained in that is the truth of these crystal palaces. You have to tell the story of the Choya Innovation Lab. The team out in West Texas buying ultra low cost energy that is not just trying to run a hyperscale initiative. What they're trying to do and doing successfully is partnering with all of the operators in the space, testing, ground testing, all of the work that they're doing, getting the hard data to prove that this is not just some mumbo jumbo that's going to be gone in a flash. And they're bringing in the grid operators, they're bringing in the political advocates to come and see that this thing is real. Bitcoin mining is a steward of the grid. You have to tell the story of John Stephanopoulos and his team out in Brooklyn trying to retain this little nucleus of decentralized mining, decentralized nodes, building a unit that's not designed to be a commercially powerful unit. It's designed to educate you into understanding what Bitcoin is in reality and what they believe it should be. You have to tell the story of CleanSpark. CleanSpark, who has built gigawatts, or has gigawatts allocated at least, has built hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of megawatts, has provided hundreds of jobs, has provided massive stability in multiple states in the union by building these large-scale sites. And you have to tell the story of Megawatt, who somehow, I don't know who from Megawatt is here. I don't know how you guys figured this out, but they're the only people that I've heard that have independently, as independent operators, changed the local laws so that they could participate in monetizing wasted infrastructure through the Midwest, and then went ahead and now deploy a strategy where they're not only hashing, but they, not at the multi-hundred megawatt scale, are bidding into the day-ahead markets and providing price stability for their local grids. Unbelievable. And finally, you have to tell the story of Gridless. I see Philip here from Gridless, if you could raise a hand. Gridless, who has gone to the far reaches of the African continent, has found wasted energy assets, hydro facilities that have laid dormant for tens of years, communities that couldn't afford the local electricity, have shown up. And on day one, they start paying the person who owns that facility with found money simply for running that facility at capacity. And the secondary effect is that they wind up slashing the cost of electricity to the end consumer. I don't think there's any better example of energy as human flourishing. So when we think about monetizing the megawatt, when we think about the story, really what I want you to think about over the next couple of days is the big of what we're doing, this story of human flourishing. And I want you to really reflect on the fact that Henry Ford got all the credit for coming up with the idea for building his Crystal Palace. But we have a very unique opportunity here because we've decentralized the whole thing. And so it's not Henry Ford we celebrate, it's all of you. So an immense thank you to everyone who we have here listed as expert reviewers of the white paper that we put together, the spotlight paper we put together. A huge thank you to all of our case study participants. And importantly, a huge thank you to all of you who are doing that same kind of work and actually achieving that end goal that Henry Ford was aiming towards, continuous production and the end result, which is human flourishing. So thank you.